Okay, so in order to take out your ball joints and put the new ones back in, you're gonna want one of these dealios. I rented this from AutoZone for a little over $100. It's an OEM 27023 ball joint U-joint press. You're gonna want to make sure that this one is specifically meant for ball joints. It's beefy, very big. You want the biggest motherfucker that you can find that'll fit in there, because the smaller ones will not do it. They will bend, they will snap, and you're going to have a bad time. So this comes with two ring plate things. One is good for pushing against studs. The other one is good for making sure that the stud goes through, or just spacers or whatever. And then you got these rings or whatever for whether you're putting them in, putting them out, or what size they are. Little tip. Put some grease in there inside of this thing, pull it out, put a little grease in, push it back in. That way it'll hold it so it stops falling so much. That is a real pain in the ass. So with the grease in there, it's a lot easier to use this tool. Anyway, let's get to the ball joints. You might also need some flat stock. I'm liking this pipe cap right here, whatever size this is, 1.5 inch. That's good for pressing when you need the stud to go through a little farther. Just see what you got laying around. Alright, so here's the lower ball joint right here. I got a MOOG. It's a K3137T. So here's the ball joint itself. It's got a cover thing in there because the axle shaft sits too close to this for it to actually have a grease fitting on there. So they give you a grease fitting and a plug. So after you're done filling it with grease, you take it out and put the plug in. But here's that split ring. This is what it looks like when it's outside the knuckle. You can see the split there, and it's just got those 4 little grooves in there that the tool sits in. So that's what I was trying to get out of the knuckle, that is still stuck in there. But yeah, that's the split ring. That's for preload adjustment. And besides that, you got your big old hunky-dory nut, cotter pin, and then here's the grease fitting that they give you, that you put in temporarily to fill it up and then take it back out. And don't forget your boot. Okay, well, this will get pressed into here like so. So let's figure out how to set this fucker up. Little PD blaster on the ball joint itself. Doesn't hurt. Okay. Oh, hey, look at that. We got business. Okay, that should be in there now. Holy crap. Alright, lower ball joint. Oh my goodness. Okay, there you go. Lower ball joint is in place. I'm going to leave the rubber boot off for now until everything's ready to go back together. So, now the front side. Here is the upper ball joint right here. It comes with the small castle nut, little grease fitting, and cotter pin. And that one is K3134T. These are the problem solver ones. Okay, hopefully this can get pushed on with the grease fitting, or the grease boot still in place. Doesn't look like it's going to catch. Alright, upper ball joint is in place. That thing was not easy. Wow. First off, it started going in crooked. So then I took the flat stock and made a spacer so I could get it to going straight. And after that, I put it all back together a little differently and cranked it down until it went on. There you go. Home run. God damn. Those things are never fucking coming out, I tell you what. Holy shit. Okay, so that's what the old split ring looks like. Finally got it out, cleaned up the threads for the most part. Here's the new one, nice and shiny. So that'll go on the bottom. Like so, and you'll thread that in. Recommendation, put some anti-seize on here, that way you'll help your feature self out when you're trying to get this fucking thing out again if you ever have to. Because just doing this side, this bit's messed up a little bit. But, oh well. So, for this lower ball joint, they tell you to put the boot on later, and it says mount inboard. It says to mount inboard. So you'll flip it over and put it on something like that. And really push that in there. Make sure it seats all the way. Okay, so now comes the tricky part. Now we're putting the knuckle back on. So the first step. Now, if you have the MOOG set that I have where the upper ball joint moves up and down, this is the way you should do it. If this is stationary, then you'll do it the way that I've read on the internet. But if you have an upper ball joint that can physically move up and down, it's actually supposed to do that. What you do is you tighten this bottom nut, or the top nut first. So you torque that to 75 foot-pounds as per the instructions. Then you'll come down here and you'll run in your split ring, and they say in the instructions that you want it to be recessed into the knuckle 0.206 inches, which comes out to about 1/5 of an inch. So you're not going to know how well you did. You just got to kind of play with it and tighten it a little bit. And what you're looking for, the way that I'm deciding this, the farther down this is, the less of a gap there is up here, which you think, oh, you want no gap. Well, the problem is this rubber boot right here. You want to try and keep this boot intact. So as you're tightening down the bigger, lower nut, you want to make sure that the boot isn't getting totally squished. You want it to have some tension on it, but you don't want it to get tore up the second you take your first turn. So basically it's just a little guessing game. Tighten it, loosen it, and then see where your reading's at. So I'll show you what it looks like when it should be what I think properly tightened is. Here's our final gap up top, just a little bit. And you can see how the rubber is squished. It's hard to tell, but there is a slight little gap in there, which means that the rubber doesn't get caught on it at all. It turns pretty freely. So that's about where you want it. I had to tighten this side up quite a bit, actually. Tighten the split ring in there quite a bit. But there you go. That's pretty much what you want. So now that both of these are torqued properly, now you can take the plug out of there, fill that with grease, fill the top one with grease. You don't want to fill it until after you're done, because with all the movement and everything, you're not sure how much space you're going to have. So once you see the rubber start to bulge just a little bit, or you start seeing it come out, you're good. Also, interesting shade tree mechanic trick here. If you don't have a socket that'll fit this, because I don't, but maybe you're doing some axle work and you have a 36mm, you can make it work. Now what I did is I took a piece of metal, just flat piece of metal, and put it in there, and what this is doing is taking up some of the extra space, so that way the nut fits in there much better. There's a lot larger contact pattern, so instead of just a little corner, it's adding up to it. And it actually worked really well. I was able to torque it, doesn't slide, doesn't slip, or do anything really. So just find some sheet metal or something and fill the gap. Hammer it in there and she fits fine. It does what you need. It's a little loose, but it's a lot better than what it was before. Okay, now to put on your cotter pins. Got the grease fittings installed. If you don't have a 7mm socket or wrench, you're going to have a bad time. For some reason, the plug that they decided to use on here is a 7mm, not a 5/16. So, yeah, have fun with that. Alright, but as you can see, it doesn't take a whole lot of force to turn this thing. I'd say 15 foot-pounds, maybe 20. But if it's real tight, you might want to check something. But there you have it. Now you just put all this shit back together again. Alright. Now the wheel bearing and axle shaft can go into place. I recommend putting some anti-seize on these bolts, because if you ever plan on working on this truck again, you're going to want to get those bolts out. So I put a little bit at the head, so that way it'll split from the knuckle there, and I put some on the tip of the threads up here. So you're just going to slide it in there, make sure the shaft is clean, try and get some of the dirt out of the axle tube so you're not getting it all in the grease and the oil in your diff. Now, with this installed, you can see that there isn't a lot of clearance there. So that's why we can't keep that fitting there, because otherwise your U-joint's going to fucking tear that thing out, and that'll be worse than just leaving the bolt in there. Okay, now you put your rotor, calipers, your brakes, and your wheels on. And there you go. Job's done. Well, you know, then you gotta do the other side. Took it out for a little ride. Back parked it like I normally do. And I'm not seeing anything. She's looking damn near perfect. So, I think that takes care of most of my camber issue. So I like it. There you go. That's how you do some ball joints and stuff.